Unit 6, Skills Test, Listening. You will hear Belinda, an urban planning student, and Keith, a town planner, discussing the topic of urban planning. For questions 1 to 6, choose the answer A, B, C, or D, which fits best according to what you hear.
Today, I'm joined by urban planning student Belinda Mayhew and town planner Keith Hughes. So, Belinda, could you tell us what urban planning is?
It's basically the job of planning what a city, or parts of a city, should be like. For example, where roads ought to be located, how many lanes they should have, or how we can make a new building blend in with its surroundings and so on. But that probably makes it sound far simpler than it really is.
I'd have to agree. Urban planning takes a number of different factors into account, such as the effect of any changes on the residents. It also needs to consider environmental and health factors as well as financial ones. To be honest, I'd say that urban planners are as much sociologists and psychologists as designers and engineers. We don't put a park in a certain place just because it fits there or looks pretty. We put it there for a reason, which may be to help reduce the effects of traffic pollution, or because local people need somewhere to exercise.
So, what's the history of urban planning?
I'm sure that ever since the first human settlements, there must have been some element of planning. But the first large-scale examples of urban planning that we know about were in ancient civilizations like those of Egypt and India. Archaeological evidence shows us that some cities were clearly laid out according to a managed design. It's even been suggested that some of these designs were intended to improve noise reduction and privacy for residents. There is, of course, no shortage of evidence to suggest that early American civilizations had mastered many aspects of urban planning with running water and sewer systems.
Belinda, you've researched urban planning from Roman times, haven't you?
Yes, and it's absolutely fascinating. As they spread out further across Europe and into Africa, it was necessary for the Romans to build new cities from scratch. This meant that they could literally draw up a plan and then build the city to those specifications. They had very strong views on planning, which often involved grid systems centred around a public square. Everything was very ordered, and the streets were nearly all the same width. It's worth pointing out that this sense of order is a principle that urban planners still try to adhere to.
So, if order is so important, why is it that so many European towns seem to be completely disorganised?
Well, it depends on the area that you're talking about and its history. When we think of medieval towns, they are often full of twisty streets, which suggests there was limited urban planning. There are many cities, such as Paris, that have emerged from these chaotic origins. However, what you usually see is that the modern parts of those cities tend to be far more organised. Barcelona is a wonderful example of this, where you have winding streets dating back to medieval times. These contrast nicely, I think, with the organised grid system employed by city planners in the 19th and 20th centuries.
Wouldn't it make sense for planners to rebuild old cities in a more organised way?
Not really. For one thing, the older parts of our towns are often the most attractive. This is what attracts tourists to cities like Venice. Not only that, but the smaller scale of the streets and buildings is more welcoming. We feel more at home in them because they aren't surrounded by skyscrapers. Instead, what we should be doing is to find ways to make them more convenient to live in, while maintaining respect for the more traditional architecture at the same time.
I couldn't agree more. I've come across some unusual examples of cities finding innovative ways of doing that. For example, in Medellin in Colombia, the residential neighbourhoods are built on steep hills with narrow streets. They're absolutely charming and full of life, but it is difficult to provide adequate public transport. Buses find them hard to negotiate, and the streets tend to suffer congestion, which is a major problem for people trying to get to work. The solution they've come up with is to build a cable car which rises high above the streets and can transport people efficiently to different points in the city. It's been a hit with residents and has transformed the way the locals move around.